channel and my gallery in southwest France. The name of the channel is Enjoy Watercolour Painting, and that's what I want to help you all to do. Today we've got something a little bit different because at the weekend, as I do every year at this time in August, I attend a special fête, an artisans' day at the next village of St Bazile. They put me into the salle de fête, which is the local community hall, and there I paint. I start in the morning and finish painting in the evening. It's a lovely sociable day, a lovely French day. This Sunday it was very, very warm, but in the morning we had lots of people coming to visit. And so this video gives you little snippets of the day and the painting that I did. So come with me and see how it all went. Let's paint.
Alors, ils sont tous payés par carte, on est dans le négatif. Oui, mais s'il n'y en a aucun devant lui, vous n'avez rien perdu, c'est pas dans le mais vous n'avez rien gagné. Je sais pas faire, si vous ne pas gagner, dans ce cas-là, c'est métaclamique. Et si vous payez tous par carte, c'est pas. Non, mais non, non, c'est pas vrai. Non, mais non, je sais pas. Mais non, mais la carte, comme je vous dis. Même le journal. Tous les boulangers le font, il y a pas de. Ah ben, parce qu'ils sont. Ah oui, c'est des belles histoires. Et la lecture, c'est la fabrique.
So this is the picture that I was working on Sunday at St Bazile. It's perfectly dry now because we're Wednesday already, and I'm going to start work on it again. It's always difficult when doing a picture like this in stages. It's easy to overwork a picture. I have the same palettes that I used on Sunday. I have burnt sienna and Windsor blue green shade. I have a combination palette of Payne's grey, Indian red and burnt sienna. And I have here Windsor blue green shade again with transparent yellow for my range of greens. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just looking at the picture, what we've got so far. The destination, the journey into the picture will take me along the river and round the bend of the river here. I have some work to do on the trees, but I don't want to overwork it. So a little bit of thought has to come into the equation. I have the photograph which was the inspiration for this picture. It's far too busy, far too detailed, and I'm just picking out the essential points from it. So a little bit of thought is required, and then you can follow me as I work at it to completion. The picture that I'm painting is on Arches 300 gram rough texture watercolour paper, and of course I've been working on it now for a couple of hours at the Fête. I started off with just a very basic indication of the bank of the river and the trees, but not much pencil work at all. And I used a toothbrush, which I have used in other videos, to start the texture of the leaves of the trees with my green palette. And now I'm here in the gallery consolidating the trees with more green, but this time not using the toothbrush, using a fine liner brush, a zero liner, which holds the paint but gives me plenty of opportunity to bend the brush to make not just little blobs or dots, but little dashes to help to create the feeling of the leaves. And I have different greens on the palette, so you can see I can alternate between lighter greens and the darker greens nearer to the blue in the mix on the tile. I'm observing the photograph to a certain extent, and of course I'm not going to put all the information that we see on the photograph, which is very full of detail, too much detail in fact. So I'm just working away, adding more greens, and the tree lines that I have just indicated with a little bit of pale colour, I'm being sure to kind of continue the tree line, the leaves of the trees behind the line of the trunks of the trees, so we have continuity in the background. I've gone into the other palette, the darker palette, with the Payne's Grey, Indian Red and Burnt Sienna, because I want to use this colour to emphasise the lighter bank of grasses, which is created by the dappled sunlight coming through the trees. And so I'm actually painting in the negative now, adding the darker colour behind the grasses and then washing it up with water. I apply the paint and then wash the paint up with clean water to blend it into the background. But I need this contrast to give that contrast with the light grasses, which are almost white in the sunlight, and this will help to give us depth in the picture, because of course we're following the river round the bend in the river, and the line of the riverbank, which I've already defined with darker colour, will take our eye through. But having this bank of dark shade behind the light grasses will also emphasise that and take our eye to the back of the picture, the vanishing point, which is where the river goes round the bend. And I'm doing the same on the other side now, adding a little bit more darker greens where the leaves come closer to the point at which I took the photograph. Working from a photograph like this gives me the chance to really analyse it and decide which bits I'm going to include and which bits I'm not, which is really important. More darker colour now to emphasise the rocky area beyond the trees. And again I'm putting the colour on strongly, and then so I want to create that feeling of rough terrain with holes in the ground and rocky bits behind the trees. Add the colour, then wash it with water, and once the paper is damp you can apply greens which will blend in as well. So working wet on wet in this area gives you a nice interesting background. It's not detailed, it's not dry defined area, it's a subtle blend of colours which I'm trying to create. I'm also, because I'm putting the colour behind the trees, that brings the trees forward because they're just pale at the moment. A little later we'll start to define the trees more, but for now I'm just working on the area behind the trees, which will all help to bring this side of the riverbank forward, just as I've done with the other side. The tree, that is the vertical tree, not the fallen over tree, has quite an exposed root system. I know this tree quite well because I like this area of the Tardoire and I've been there many times, and I want to emphasise the way the tree roots are just holding on to the riverbank and adding more light and dark here to emphasise that fact. I've speeded up this video, of course, otherwise the video would be very long. I think in total this picture will be about 6 hours work by the time it's finished, and we're about half to 3/4 of the way there at this moment. I tend to work in blocks of 2 to 3 hours at a time, but this one, because of the fact that it was started the Fête, has been a little bit more disjointed. But now we're looking at emphasising those trees a little bit more. Now the trees I don't want to be too solid, but I want them to be visible. So I'm just applying dark colour on one side of the trunk and then washing it across to give that rounded appearance, and emphasising the shadows underneath the trees, so they start to come forward and are more obvious, more visible. Because we've got quite a lot of greens now creating the foliage of the leaves, I'm just able to add a hint of the branches just visible between the leaves, and this also helps to bring all the picture together. The main tree I'm going to darken again. I've done this several times, and with watercolours often you have to go over and redo your shade, because when the watercolours dry it always dries lighter. But that's okay, it's fine really, you just have to work away like that. It does always go lighter when it dries. Now I want to do something with the vanishing point, the point of the bank in the distance. I don't want to make it more detailed, but I do want to make it a little bit more shady. So I'm just adding a hint of colour and then washing it with a bigger mop brush. A little bit more detail will take your eye to that vanishing point of the river. But the main point that's creating that vanishing point are the stones on the right hand side where the river disappears behind that right bank. Now you can see the two sides together, which are giving us that picture of the bend in the river. Adding a little bit more information there just to attract the eye to that important bit of the picture where the river vanishes. More emphasis on the rocks too, and yes, well this is at the extreme of the picture on the right hand side, and there are two tree trunks lying there, obviously washed down by the flood, but I don't really want them to be of much importance. They take your eye away from the central point, so I'm just going to put a wash of burnt sienna and Windsor blue green shade across that part of the picture, just to kind of make it less important, and also to add contrast to the lighter bits of that side bank. Now we're looking at the foreground. The rocks in the foreground need to be more emphasised, so I'm adding stronger shading in places. Just working my way down the paper, adding more shading, a combination of Payne's grey and burnt sienna. Because the river is flowing and is horizontal, I wash the shading horizontally with the brush after I've applied it to the shady side of the rock. And this is my foreground, which is very limited. It's where I was standing on the bank when I took the photograph. I don't want it to be too busy and I don't want it to be too important. So I've just added some green, quite a dark Windsor blue green shade combined with transparent yellow. I'm just washing it in, applying more greens with the liner brush and then washing it with the mop brush, just to give the impression of grasses, but not too detailed. I don't want the eye to dwell too much on this part of the picture. After all, we want the eye to go in, along the bank and round the bend. And finally, this is where we get serious with the river. I've already put several washes, but I want to emphasise the shading, the reflection, and the combination of colours that are caused by the sky's reflection, the trees reflected, and the riverbank. I'm standing up to do this because it's always good to have a good view of what you're painting, and it has to be horizontal, and the colour goes on bravely. No playing about with just small amounts of paint, but washing the colour across just to give that feeling of shimmering water. This mop brush works very well for that. So it's Payne's grey, burnt sienna and Indian red, and I'm using the rough texture of the paper and the brush on its side to kind of give that shimmering effect, which works very well with this harsh rough grain paper. There we go, it just skips across the paper and gives us a shimmery look. But always water helps to blend it. Magic really, just magic. Take it well into the rocks because the rocks are washed by the river as it flows. And I think we're nearly at the point where we can put the brush down and say, there we are, it's finished. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave any comments you may have. I leave you with the finished painting, another view of the Tardoire. Thank you for watching. Till the next time, bye.